Welcome to Leadership Conversations. My name is Josh. I'm the pastor at Rehope Belfast, and I'm so thrilled that you're here today with us for today's great conversation. And hey, while you're here, why not hit subscribe? Wherever it is on your screen right now, just go ahead, hit subscribe. We would love for you to get this content straight into your inbox as we continue to develop these conversations. So without further ado, let's dive into today's conversation, which I know is going to be such a blessing to you wherever you are. So without further ado, here's today's leadership conversation.
And today we're going to specifically look at leading families well. I'm delighted to be joined by my good friend all the way from Bend in Oregon. It's Brook Mosa. Hey bud, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing wonderful. Your accent is just so captivating and refreshing, given the season that I'm in of just so many Americans everywhere all the time. It's just so nice to hear a voice with some real class. So I'm glad to hear you.
I don't think anyone's ever told me that my voice is full of class, but I'll take it. I receive it, and Thank you for it. My ego is just bubbling up that little bit more, and so thank you for that. Hey, Brooke, why don't you just tell us a little bit about who you are, about your wonderful family, and then also just a little bit about intentional parenting as well.
Yeah. So my name is Brook. It's a girl's name. My parents had basically picked the name and decided, regardless of gender, that is your name. So I both am offended by that and stuck with that. So
that is my daughter after you. So
That's right. Oh, I forgot. That's right. Hey, that makes me feel even better. But again, it proves the point.
That isn't true, by the way, but take it for whatever it's worth.
You named your daughter after me, so it's the point. Anyway, so I'm married to Elizabeth. We've been married for about 13 years. We have 4 kids, 11 down to 2 years old, and life is a little bit crazy. I'm a pastor. I've been a pastor for the last 13 years as well, and led different churches in different spaces, and all been loving that process. And then about a year and a half ago, started with my mother and father-in-law. We actually joined the team. They started a ministry called Intentional Parenting, and it's all about raising passionate Jesus followers. And so we, Elizabeth and I, speaking of we, joined that team about a year and a half ago, and have just been in the process with them, helping develop really what we would call something for parents and families to not only have healthy, thriving marriages, which is really important, obviously, if you're married or if you have kids, you know that, but to raise passionate Jesus followers, and not just raise kids that are, getting good grades, although that's important, or eating the right amount of food or the right kinds of food, all that stuff's important, but making our primary responsibility to disciple our kids and lead them into things of faith, and creating an incredible foundation from the get-go. So I kind of wear 2 different hats. I get to help lead a community here in Bend, and then I also do that half-time. So I'm kind of split with my time, but that's what we get to do. We love it.
Great. That's so fun. And obviously, I think we were chatting just before we went on lockdown, or not on lockdown, before we hit record. We are out in lockdown. We are in week 6 here in the UK. You guys are under slightly different rulings over there in the States, and as the news shows, you guys in America are just doing whatever you want anyway.
Dude, everybody in America is basically like, don't tell me what to do, is basically the like everyone's scared enough to like keep physical distance, but like if it inconveniences us here in America, we tend to just go, I'm still gonna kind of just do it, So yeah, we don't have the best rule followers here in America.
How are you and your family doing in the midst of the kind of the unknown and the weirdness of lockdown, pandemic, whatever that looks like?
Well, yeah, I think we're probably similar to a lot of people where we're just trying to figure it out. And I say figure it out, meaning like we had to go back to the drawing board on a lot of things that we do, from how are we going to spend our days, to my work schedule, to what do we need to be healthy emotionally and spiritually and physically during this time? How much my wife's an introvert, and I definitely have a good amount of introversion as well, but my need is far lower than hers. So for her, as an example, how do we get her time every week to have a substantial amount of time to just disconnect from people, myself included, how does she actually just have a moment to breathe and remember, like, oh, here's my soul, here's my awareness of the spirit, so she can be her best self. And so yeah, we've been doing a lot of refiguring and struggling along the way, and and doing it wrong and figuring out, okay, that doesn't work, let's try this. So in general, everyone's alive, everyone's healthy, which is exciting. There's a little bit of fatigue fatigue specifically around how much time we're all having with each other. So we're just needing to give each other a little space. But I think we're not alone with that. So
Yeah,
that's how we're doing. Yeah. How about you guys? How are you guys faring with everything?
yeah, good. If you can hear in the background the chaos of kids on the trampoline, and now they've actually both taken all their clothes off. So lockdown mode has got to them, obviously.
Give us 6 more months. I think adults will be in that same place. Hopefully not. Hopefully not.
But yeah, no, I think we're doing okay. Like I think again, as we were chatting about beforehand, like our kind of lockdown is maybe a little bit more stricter than you. We are, pretty isolated in the sense of not seeing really anyone. And we're homeschooling our eldest, who is 4, turns 5 in the next few weeks, probably going to celebrate his birthday in lockdown.
Wow.
So yeah, no, I think we're okay. I think we're due to go on holiday next week. So that's like another kind of, I think there's many markers that come along the way in all this, which you kind of go, oh, I'm not going to have that. And actually my son, he's innately aware of kind of what's going on, not perhaps being able to emotionally connect with it and talk about it, but he then, he shared with us very much out of the blue, like, oh, I'm really sad that we're not going to get to go away. And so, you're just like, oh, like, so as a family, yeah, we're doing okay. Actually loving, getting to spend more time together, which is really nice. But then, I think there's all those little things along the way, which you're just kind of like, oh, like we're missing out on that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, the birthday thing is really funny. All 3 of my girls, so I have a son, Duke, who's 11, and then Scarlett, Birdie, and Sloan, 3 girls. And all of their birthdays are within a month of each other. And they all celebrated their birthday in quarantine. So it's been so interesting, kind of being like, hey, let's do these virtual and people have been so sweet. They'll like come by and drop off presents at the house, and everyone's getting creative. But all 3 of my girls, their birthdays have been during this one chunk of time. So yeah. I feel for you. It's a unique season. It's one for the memory bank for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. But you guys, having fun in the midst of it. Are you, do you feel like you're creating those memories? Because I think that's one of the things I'm so aware of with our kids is like, yeah, Ruben's going to remember it. Brooke, maybe not so, she's 2, but, I'm as a parent, I'm wanting to help them to have fun in the midst of this, that it's not them taking on dad's stress and all of our angst and worry and concern and confusion around it all.
Yeah. Well, to answer your question, yes, we're having fun, but I think, it's a learning curve for a lot of us, because now all of a sudden, where I had about 8 or 9 hours a day where I was focused on work, which is my responsibility, and all the different responsibilities that go with work, I'm trying to now do a lot of that stuff. My work hasn't necessarily, it's in subtle ways slowed down, but in many ways my work hasn't been affected, which is in part really nice. And then the other part is now I'm trying to do that with 4 little ones at home. We homeschooled before. We started this past fall. So the homeschooling adjustment hasn't been that bad, primarily because we were kind of in the throes of that already. That said, trying to get work done when my 4-year-old and 2-year-old don't understand that when dad's home, that like if I'm home, their thought is, dad's home to play, give me his full attention, to only do what I want him to do with me at the moment I want to do it. And so we literally, it's been so funny, like I've been trying to find different rooms in which I can like work, because I don't have a proper office at home. And so I've been trying to find these different spaces. And then finally I was like, I kept moving into our room, and then it was like, okay, I'll try to like move into our like master bathroom. And none of that was working. So I had to literally finally move into a closet that is a little bit of a walk-in closet, and close the door. And like lock that door and lock another door just so the girls couldn't get in, and there was enough sound barrier so if I was on a call or something, they could be like pounding on the door, Dad, and there was like enough dullness in the background where someone would be like, is that a small child? Like, no, it's not. So yeah, I've been trying to figure that out. I think fun has been challenging because the kids get bored really easy because there's only so many times you can play basketball. There's only so many times you can skateboard or go ride bikes before you feel like, man, this is just so repetitive. And then we don't have the breakup of going to church and the breakup of just normal routine community stuff that we would do with our community. And so yeah, we're doing our best to have fun. We're going to purchase a trampoline like you did. But we decided the amount of injuries with 4 children is probably pretty high. Given the circumstances, we should stay away from hospitals. So we opted to buy a basketball hoop. So we did that. So we've been in that space playing basketball, having fun, watching a bunch of movies. Every Thursday night is classic Disney movie night. So we pick a classic Disney movie we haven't seen, and we do that. And then Saturday's family movie night, which is more of a more modern movie. So we try to just do little things like that to keep interest for the kids and stuff like that. So
yeah,
it's been really
fun. Well, with that kind of mindset then of raising kids in the midst of an ever-changing dynamic, which we as adults are still trying to process, and I'm sure even coming out of the back of this in a number of weeks, months, years time, we'll still be kind of like, oh, do you remember that moment? Wasn't that strange? Like, we still don't fully understand it, but we lived through it. Like, I'm intrigued to know, and I think we'll just kind of work through this with just a bit of conversation backwards and forwards. But like for you, with obviously with your intentional hat on, but also with your experience of raising 4 kids, like, have you got any kind of thoughts around like rhythms or practices that you're finding helpful in this season, which is just helping you as a family, but maybe specifically with the kids, just help them to thrive in the midst of what is a chaotic season in the world right now?
Yeah. Oh, that's a great question. I'd love to hear your response on that as well. But to answer that question, I think there's a real gift and we talk about this a lot in intentional, but it's not because it's a really cool topic to talk about. I think it's just really important, and that is order. When your home has structure and order and it has its own ecosystem, and that's a spiritual ecosystem. It's also a practical, emotional ecosystem that your family exists in, and you and your spouse have the responsibility and or the privilege to set that ecosystem up. And when the world is chaotic, which it usually is, I mean, we're in a pandemic right now, and that's just been really bizarre and thrown everybody off for sure. But the world's always kind of crazy, and weird stuff's always happening, especially as you can relate from a distance, watching Americans in America. Like, we're always going through different storms. So I think when you have that opportunity to set up your home, I think we did a podcast on this a couple weeks ago, but we started to talk about the process of the kingdom at home, bringing the kingdom of heaven at home and bringing that to your house. And what does that look like, and how do you do that? And the reason we primarily did that episode was because we were finding not only did we need to be more specific, more strategic about that, but really reminding everybody that how you as a parent, how you as a couple handle this is how your kids are going to remember this. And like you kind of mentioned, I don't want my kids to remember dad's stress during the whole thing. If you're stressed out all the time, your kids are going to remember this as a really chaotic time. But if you're taking advantage to be present and actually have more time with them and be more intentional about your time, whether that be through reading to them, talking with them, getting to know them, having fun with them, they're going to remember this as one of the best gifts of their life. And so, I think that is something that is so important in this season. So what we've done is just been really thoughtful about our structure, our order, our schedule, and we're not rigid with it. Like Elizabeth's way more structured and scheduled than I am. So we definitely balance each other out. That said, I think our kids know what to expect in a given day. They have a good thought of like, here, I'm going to be doing school from around this time to this time. Here's some quiet time in the day. Here's what we kind of do at night. And things ebb and flow and change. And sometimes if it feels too sterile, I'll just like throw a bomb in there and mess it all up. And not for the sake of messing it up, but just to kind of keep it fresh. And Elizabeth is really great about that. So we've been, I think order's been very important, and having that has really saved us and given us a space of like, oh, it helps us have center. It helps us. We wake up and read the scriptures. Our kids wake up and read the scriptures, those that are the kids that are old enough. And we have these little rhythms and practices throughout the day that help us stay present to that order. So that's what we're doing. But how about you guys?
Yeah, similar. Like we're trying to get a bit of a rhythm. I drew up on, not physically on the wall, but stuck a bit of paper on a wall. Like a pictorial chart just showing these are the things that are going on in the day. And trying to get a bit of that rhythm. I think for me, I'm still working full time as well. So trying to get that space and trying to, again, like you find the closet space. Like for me, it's like, okay, when daddy's in the garage, leave me be. I'm trying to work, trying to get a sermon done or whatever it is. But I think it like, rather than thinking it on the large scale, it's trying to think of it in the, what are those small little moments? And so, obviously we've got a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old. And so actually just some of the small things, like we, most days we go for a walk down to, there's a pond about, 20-30 minute walk, or 20-minute walk, 45-minute walk with a 2-year-old. And there's thousands of frog spawn in the pond. And so every day we're going down and then like getting Reuben to then draw or what's he seen. And then every day seeing the progression. So now we're like waiting for the day when they're going to sprout legs. And so it's a bit of fun, and like trying to get out and do that. I'm just mindful of, I think it's in James K. Smith's book, where he uses the story of the 2 stone cutters. I don't know if you know the story. Whereas like the question's asked, like, what are you doing when, they're chiseling away at the stone, and one person says, well, I'm cutting this stone into a perfect square. And the other one responds, well, I'm building a cathedral. And it's this like really beautiful image of every single, knock or notch has been made into the stone matters, and it's being built up into something bigger. But right now, all we can see is the stone. And so for me in this moment, it's kind of like, well, I don't need to be thinking of the cathedral, which is, Reuben when he's 35 and smashing life or whatever he's doing. I don't know. But actually, it's what are those little knocks that are being just built into him that are going to be part of something, a bigger story in his life. Yeah. And so, for Ruth and I, we're trying to be as intentional around that as possible. It doesn't mean we're perfect at it every time. And I think one of the things that we were mentioning before as well is like, I think these moments are just heightening every emotion that we might have. Whereas before, like, we go off to work and we get a bit of headspace, or, we have that, that dinner date, or we have that, and just that space to kind of breathe and relax. Whereas actually right now, I mean, we're 5 weeks into not having had a babysitter around, or 5 weeks into not having, normally on a Wednesday, both of our kids are off with the grandparents, but we haven't had that. And so, every mealtime, every lunchtime, every breakfast, every moment of the day, every like church on a Sunday is mad, because like it's just watching me on a screen, and like the kids are just doing their thing in the room. And so we don't, those rhythms are gone. And so, I'm trying to boil it down to the small little pieces. What can we win today? And it just has to be a small thing, but also like, and I don't know what you think about this, but like actually setting expectations fairly low. Like, and not being like, okay, today, like, Reuben's going to paint a masterpiece. It's like, well, don't set that expectation. Like, actually, what might the expectation be that we just set? It might just be I don't know, something way lower.
It's so funny, because everything you're saying right now is, I think so many people relate with, because we expect our kids to really handle this whole thing well, and the new adjustment well, and we're all at home now, and we just kind of have this assumption that our kids are going to handle this really well. And then when they don't, because it's a really weird situation and you yourself feel off, you're like, what's going on? Am I a terrible parent? Or why aren't they getting the picture? I think we just have to create space for everyone. I think yeah, having some realistic expectations about the fact that this is going to affect everybody in a different way. Everyone gets hyped and psyched about the Enneagram, and there's parts of it I love and there's parts of it I don't. But what I do like about the Enneagram is helping understand different parts about yourself. And I was talking to my therapist just yesterday. He's now doing phone calls, which is great. And I was talking to him, and he was kind of helping me see how, even this whole COVID thing has affected my ability to process negative emotions. And I was like, what are you talking about? And then he kind of helped me see. So you process emotions, negative emotions specifically, I wrote it down, through activity. So every time I get on a plane and I go to a conference or we do a podcast or we have an event or you teach on a Sunday, it distracts you from a lot of those maybe pain points that you're feeling, or some of those deep emotional things that you're able to kind of just go, oh, okay, that's negative, that's frustrating, but I'm kind of distracting myself to an extent. And obviously this is just me, but I think it was a helpful reminder. I had no idea how much some of the dynamics and the side effects of some of this pandemic has caused me to sit with a new amount of emotional pain than I was previously aware, because of the fact that I'm sitting with it more and there's not these distractions or activities to help process that negative emotion. So I'm learning this whole new thing of like, how do I process negative emotions while sitting in that pain and working through it? Now, I'm a 7 on the Enneagram, so if you're a 7, you can take that. That's pretty classic for 7s. But that said, it was a really big eye-opener because I didn't even realize the depth of how this was affecting me. I think I just said, well, it's a pandemic. It's fine. Like, not a big deal. And then my eyes were being opened layer after layer. Like, this is actually really affecting me, not directly, but kind of indirectly with all the side effects from not being able to process some of that stuff. So anyway, if I'm having to give myself, if I'm realizing that about myself, man, I need to extend that to my wife, to my kids, to the people that I'm around, that I'm closest to, because if that's just me, I can only imagine what someone like my wife, who's more of an introvert, as an example, is feeling. So are you an introvert or extrovert? Where do you kind of land with how you recharge?
Yeah, so I used to be, it's interesting, like since going into ministry, I started as a massive extrovert and then I've got more and more introverted.
Classic, yeah.
I think in terms of recharging, I need my headspace to be, I'm going to go and sit and watch a Marvel movie.
Yeah.
Just watch people blow stuff up and have no relational connection with that at all. I'm just switching off or just sat reading about. I mean, essentially, it's all the things that I don't have much time to do.
Yeah. Oh man, I hear you. I've been doing I've been trying to watch like movie, like during this time I've been watching lots of I love documentaries, so I've just been going through and watching documentaries, and I've been loving that. That's been really fun. I was going to say that one of the things that I was thinking about as we were just talking is one of the biggest, back to that, what are we doing to help us kind of thrive, and what's our family structure? One thing that we stumbled upon just a couple weeks ago that has been massive and revolutionary. I don't know if we've talked about it in any other space, but Elizabeth and I the other day, a couple weeks ago, we basically decided, okay, Friday and Saturday are like our day off and our Sabbath. But man, when I get to Sabbath and we're all together all the time, after we've all been together all the time, it's not as much of a gift at that moment. So we actually decided to kind of flip it on its head. And we basically, on Friday and Saturday, between those 2 days, we give each other like 3 or 4 or 5 hours. So what that looks like practically is like Friday afternoon from like 12 to 5. Like, I'm completely off. I can go on a walk. I can go on a run. I can watch a movie. I can do whatever's like Sabbath-y, restful to me in that moment. And then Saturday morning from waking to like noon or 1, she has that time. And I take the kids. And it has been the most helpful little gift each week that we look forward to, because we look forward to being together and we're together. But it's now kind of funny how it's switched, where what's more of a blessing is actually being apart right now and taking a little break to enjoy those moments and those people more. So I just passed that along as something that has been so fun for us, such a gift, something we've been able to give to each other, and it's just bore so much fruit. So
that's really good.
Try it.
I'm going to go talk to my wife about that right now. It's great.
So just put it on the calendar and try to, try a couple different times too, because maybe, you try this time and that time it doesn't work, but just commit to giving each other, and not just an hour. Like, don't do the hour and a half thing. Like, oh, just nap time. Like, do a substantial, like, 4 or 5 hours.
Mm.
But man, it's been so good. So anyway, that's something I wanted to share because I know it's been so helpful.
Yeah, no, that's really good. Just on the whole Sabbath thing, because I know that this is a space that for us as a family, like we Sabbath from Friday at like 5 through to Saturday 5, and we try to switch off, disengage. Normally starts Friday night as a family movie night, and then we just kind of allow ourselves to, I mean, I'd love to say we lie in, and we're, the kids are up at 5:30 every day, just like, let's go. It's like, oh gosh, learn to sleep in, please.
Yeah.
But like, what, any thoughts around, just really practically, how to Sabbath well with family, with young kids? Like, have you found anything that's helpful? Again, like for us, setting expectations low, we're not going to have, everyone off reading books in the corner and it's just quiet. Like,
oh, well, it's hard because you have those people that have louder voices in the church world who kind of share their ideal Sabbath. And you have to remember Sabbath is a gift, and it's a gift for us to enjoy. And not everyone enjoys Sabbath the same way. And I guess maybe to clarify, at least this is my own opinion, is that we don't all refresh or recharge the same way, and we're all at different stages of our apprenticeship to Jesus. So some of us have not built up the energy. I'll speak for myself. Have built up the spiritual energy to just be basking in God's presence for the 12 hours that I'm awake on my Sabbath. Mm-hmm. Not only to just mention, like, that's just where I'm like at spiritually, but then not to mention that I have a wonderful wife who has different needs that I need to be emotionally and physically and spiritually aware of. And then 4 kids that need that too. And they don't get that at Sabbath, especially the younger ones. The older ones can kind of get into it. So I think it's just first of all, give yourself permission to be in a space where I think, yes, it's a day of worshipful fun and rest. That's kind of the metric that we use. Is this fun? It's a day of all the have-tos go away, and we do all the get-tos. We get to do this. We get to do this. We get to do this. So that's how we kind of use it. Now with 4 kids and then having a spread of from 11 to 2, man, yes, we have been. I feel like for the last 6 years, I've been trying to figure out and waiting for that perfect Sabbath day. And to be completely honest, we haven't reached it yet, and I don't know if we ever will at this point. I think when we have a perfect Sabbath day or whatever, will be when almost nobody needs us, and that's not going to be for a very long time. So I think, I think setting that expectation low, as you said, is good. But some things that we've been trying or have tried that have helped, I'll just share that. Our kids need different stuff, and so I think giving each other a break on those days has been very good, whether it's like, a little bit of Friday and then some of Saturday. That's been really good because then my wife and I are able to give each other some of those refreshing moments, although, the kids are still needing stuff. So that's been really helpful. And then I think we had a lot of expectation as well. Like, we're not going to have the TV on. We're not going to have, everyone's going to kind of be reading or doing creative stuff, and we just found like, that's not our stage. That's not our pace. That doesn't actually work for us right now. And although that's kind of where our heart would love to lean, we're not in that stage practically. So it looks like, us giving each other to read in different moments and have more worshipful fun. But with our kids, it looks like planning a little event maybe and going out and doing something fun, whether it's a hike or finding a cool little spot that they haven't been to, a little coffee shop before, something like that. And then we honestly, right now, to be completely transparent, we probably watch more TV on Sabbath than any other day, which people go like, oh, you can't do that. Like, you shouldn't do that. Or like, it's a time to turn all the media off. But to be honest, we're so kind of strict about that throughout the week that to kind of take the pressure off of that and be like, hey, let's watch a documentary, or let's watch, we're not watching wasteful things, but we found that it's honestly also nice because the kids aren't used to it. So they're far more entertained by some of that. So it totally selfishly gives us opportunities to just like have a conversation off to the side or just to be more present and not to feel like you have to be parenting at every moment. So that could be terrible advice, and some of it probably is, but that's what we are in right now. We're trying to let out the air a little bit and trying to, so no, we haven't figured out anything perfect, but it's pancakes usually, lots of good food, lots of movies, lots of resting, and then enjoying Jesus through that process.
That's great. No, I think that's really helpful because I think sometimes Yeah, we can, especially as parents, we can put so much pressure on ourselves to have this Instagrammable Sabbath, which we don't do because our phones are off and we don't do media on Sabbath, right? But we want
Legalism.
yeah, I think to give yourself permission, especially when you're, I mean, the stage that we're both in, where we've both got a 2-year-old, we've both got a 4-year-old. They're both, we know what it's like at that age where they are wanting constant attention. They're not wanting to sit down for more than, I mean, our 2-year-old won't sit down for more than 2 minutes before she's like, oh, a magpie, and just shiny things.
Yep.
Just disappears off to do something different. And yeah, we're just not in that zone right now. But there are little things that we can do along the way which mark it as special. So really simple one, silly one, but like we only let our kids have a chocolate cereal on Sabbath morning.
Yeah.
It's healthy breakfast. But yeah,
Yep.
and so my son every day is like, is today Sabbath? Is today Sabbath? Because he's looking forward to the chocolate cereal. So, it's about marking off the day, isn't it? And saying this is special. So then he's going to remember that as he grows older, and he'll remember the taste of chocolate on his mouth whenever, it will remind him of that.
That's a great, I love that. Yeah. For us, it's pancakes, but similar thing. I think what you're saying and what I know that we've come across, and I think just to agree with you, is discovering who you are as a person and discovering who your family is and what your family's need is in that season, and not trying to like compare that to other people's version of Sabbath or what are other people do. I think that is just such a gift for you and for your family, because you can just take all that pressure off of, oh, Sabbath is supposed to be this legalistic burden. Because what ends up happening, I know for me, I don't know if you experienced this, it sounds like you might, but when I had this ideal of Sabbath, I was just constantly frustrated around Sabbath, on Sabbath, because I wasn't actually listening to what I needed or what my family needed. I was just trying to fit us into this like really kind of rigid, this is what you do, you read, you turn off everything that's media related, you don't do these things. And it wasn't like, is our family need this? Can they even do this right now? It was more like, this is what we do, and you do it and you enjoy it, and you better enjoy it because it's Sabbath, and you can't not enjoy it because it's a sin to not enjoy it on Sabbath or whatever. So that's been just a huge gift. So giving yourself permission to be who you are, where you are, I think is a really big gift for Sabbath.
That's great. It's really helpful. One final question, and then we'll wrap up. As my son waves at me from the window. Hey, buddy. I guess one final question, and we'll just kind of wrap up with this. But discipline. That's a fun one to remember.
Good luck. I'm out.
Yeah.
No, just kidding.
I think one of the things that I'm innately aware of, and we've kind of already touched on it a little bit through this, is like obviously in this time, emotions are heightened. We're dealing with different things that we might not deal with normally. Spending more time, as we've said, with the kids. We're not having that valve where we can let off the steam going off to work, or we've got that commute that we're driving and we can just decompress a little bit. Like we're not having that moment. Any thoughts just around how to be gracious, loving, how to be effective with raising passionate Jesus followers, whilst also having to balance it with the need for us as parents to lovingly discipline and to raise our kids in such a way that they don't end up hating us because of it. Big question, I know, but
this is where I think this is where I'm so thankful that we don't raise our kids alone. I think my wife would have much better things to say on this because she's so wise, and I'm thankful for her. And but that said, I think there's a couple of things I know she would say, and I know that I would say as well. First of all, it starts with you, right? It starts with you being that person who is submitting yourself to Jesus, aware of the holes in your character, aware of your weak spots. Self-awareness, I think, is huge when it comes to discipline, because oftentimes we discipline because we're annoyed. Well, if you kind of think back, well, why are you annoyed that your kid's jumping up and down and being crazy? They're just being a kid. They literally don't have anything that they're not trying to annoy you, as an example, right? They're jumping on the furniture because that's a bouncy thing and they're really excited. Now, if there's a line and there's a time when it becomes direct disobedience, if you've calmly and lovingly said, hey, please don't jump on the furniture, because we don't do that with muddy shoes. It just makes it a whole thing. Please don't do it. And over time, if they keep doing it, that becomes defiance, that becomes disobedience, and then you need to handle that. That said, I think a lot of the times that we, at least let's just use this time when we're all kind of around each other more. I've been finding, I'll just speak personally, I have been finding that I have been disciplining or I've been more firm or more rude or more direct with my kids, not because they're necessarily doing anything wrong, but because I'm actually not able, I have all these different things I'm feeling, these emotions I'm feeling, these things I'm working through, and I'm finding myself more annoyed. And I end up responding in frustration or responding in anger. And that's because of my, and when I step back, it's because of I wasn't properly dealing with or aware of my emotional state enough to actually deal with that, to be calm and to respond to those very normal day in, day out kid things with grace and understanding and patience and meekness. Instead, I was just like, stop, like, quit doing that. Like, please just be quiet, right? Like, or whatever the thing is. So I think during this time, and I think that's a good place a good time frame to keep it in. I think when it comes to discipline, the first thing I would ask is this really an offendable, disciplinable thing? Are you just annoyed? Are you frustrated because you've been around and you just need a walk to decompress? Have they actually done something wrong? Or are you just frustrated by the general kind of, intensity of the day? That'd be the first thing. And then secondly, when you need to discipline, I think more and more what I'm learning is there's always a time from your frustration of disobedience and before you discipline. There's a little space in time that you have, and we all have to find it, when the Spirit has an opportunity to say hey, this is a big deal, or this isn't, and this is how you should handle it. And I think all of us as parents, when it comes to discipline, have a responsibility to learn that moment of between when you're triggered and frustrated and see the discipline, the disrespect, and when you actually go to discipline, whether that's a loving rebuke or correction, encouragement, or the rod of correction, whichever tool of discipline works best in that space or is appropriate for that space, to find out, what is the Spirit saying? Is this a character deal? Am I just annoyed? Is this that big of a deal? And I think the more that we can do that, we'll be more effective in our discipline, because we'll be actively addressing what is real. Is this a real problem, or am I just frustrated? So that would just be what I'm just sharing what I'm learning. I'm behind in some ways. I think there's a lot of people that might listen to this and go, man, that guy's really behind. And I would totally agree. I'm learning with everybody. So that would be my 2 cents.
Yeah. Mate, thank you. Super helpful. Would you pray for anyone listening, parents who are just in this space that we're all in? I think it's a beautiful kind of sense of we're all in this together, wherever we are. What a unique time.
Yes.
And so what you get to pray into right now is what you are experiencing as a family, but then also a family here in Belfast, all the hundreds of miles away. We're going through the same thing. So, hey, would you pray? Just whatever comes to you right now, and then we'll wrap up and close.
Yeah, thank you. And just want to say thank you, man. So appreciate your ministry and what you guys are doing, and excited to be able to come visit you soon and give you a proper hug that's not social distanced. But yes, I'd love to pray, and thanks for the chat. Yeah. Holy Spirit, we just take a minute to invite you to this space. I want to pray for anybody that's listening, that you would just give them hope right now, and that you would remind them of, first, how much you love them, how much you care for them, how much you forgive them, how much you're interested in them. And I pray that you would empower those listening to truly experience just some of the deep grace, deep love, deep joy of just real time communion, fellowship, space with you. I pray practically for the families that are listening, the parents that are listening. I just pray for an extra amount of grace, an extra amount of wisdom, an extra amount of understanding, an extra amount of discernment and wisdom in raising their kids well. I pray that you would just remind each parent that might be listening of the important responsibility to show Jesus to their kids through how they live and how they act and how they move through the world. So I just pray there be a new sense all over Belfast of those who are just being filled with the Spirit and being filled with calm and not fear but faith. And would you just empower your people? Would you bless your people? And thank you for them. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Buddy, thank you for your time.
Yes. Honored.